My name is Roy Tellis, and as she just mentioned, I've been working professionally in the field for many years. But I've also been called a whole host of other names. I'll just give you some of them. Drunkard, toper, alcoholic, sharabi, beoda, darudia, kutta, gadhe ke dum, halkat, haramzade, that too. Nalayak. Why the heck was I called all these names? And Dr. GT was talking, and so did Ilesh, talked about stigma. I just want to give you guys a little background, which really was an eye-opener for me. I come from a middle-class background in India. My parents are both dental surgeons. My family is littered with all kinds of professionals. My parents are from two different backgrounds. Father's side of the family is Catholic, mother's side of the family is Hindu. My father graduated from the University of Liverpool, my mom from NYU, and they both went back and practiced dentistry. So they entertained a lot. And as a kid growing up, in our socioeconomic circle, alcohol was acceptable. I did most of my social drinking from age 6 to 16. We would be getting a glass of wine at dinner, no big deal. As soon as we got into double digits, we got rewarded with that concoction the British left behind called shandy. You take an inch of,
I know that.
Yeah, you take 1 inch of beer, top it up with lemonade, and it's okay to give to kids. Gurmeet used the term, I had arrived. Clear recollection of being 10 or 11 years old, sitting on the front porch on a Sunday morning with my dad. He was drinking a glass of beer, I was drinking a glass of shandy. Wow, I was a man. Rite of passage. I had arrived. So in my socioeconomic circle, it was par for the course. And then I went to college and I found people who liked the effect alcohol had in me. And I hung out with these guys, and I'll tell you a little more about that later, my own personal history. At this moment, there's approximately 13,000 people of South Asian origin in New Jersey who are either alcoholic or on their way to being alcoholic or dying of some of the symptoms that Dr. Prakash talked about, from some of the causes that Dr. GT talked about. The National Institute of Mental Health and Addiction Studies, NIMHANS, in Bangalore, they did a longitudinal study from 1988 to 2008. And I just want to tell you some of those numbers and how they related to me. I started drinking, you said use, abuse, and dependence. So I was using from 6 to 16. I was definitely abusing from 16 to probably around 23, 24. And when I got hold of these figures, in 1992, the government of P.V. Narasimha Rao opened up the airwaves to Indian television. We had only 2 channels, Doordarshan 1 from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and Doordarshan 2, only if there was cricket or hockey or something like that. So you just got whatever the government fed to you. But in 1992, when they opened up the airwaves to Star TV, all of a sudden, kids in India were watching The Bold and the Beautiful. And you talked about role models. Wow, in every scene there's alcohol. You drive somewhere, there's alcohol. They meet in a bar, they go to a restaurant, there's alcohol at home. Is what we are seeing. Wow, if they're doing this in the United States, and the government of India thinks it's okay for us to watch this on TV, then it's okay for us to watch this on TV. And even in our Hindi movies, whether it's Dharmendra or Raj Kapoor or whoever it was, there was always alcohol, there was always Johnny Walker Black or red or blue or whatever colors they had at that time. And I looked at these figures. They found in that study that between 1988 to 1998, there was a 114% increase in alcohol consumption. What does that mean? The average drinker went from drinking 9 bottles of alcohol a year to 20 bottles a year. I was drinking much more than that. And the average age of the onset of drinking, and this is really important, it dropped from 25 to 23. Think about the way we are brought up in India. You don't go anywhere. You stay at home till you finish college because it's free and they're paying the bills. So you finish high school at 16 and you go to college for 5 years. You graduate at 21, maybe do another 2 years of masters, 23, 24, you get your first job. By 25 was the onset of social alcohol drinking. It took 10 years for the onset of problems. Problems started developing at age 35. That was 1988. With the onset of the liberalization of the airwaves, import tariffs were cut. We didn't have to pay 60% on bringing in scotch and cigarettes anymore. By 1998, that had dropped to 23. The onset of drinking. And the onset of problems had dropped to 29. I don't have the latest figures, but you extrapolate that another 10 years, and this is true what's happening in India today. The average age of the onset of drinking now is 18. Why 18? That's the legal age of drinking in India. You go to college, you drink. And the average age of problems has dropped to 23. There has been a 302% increase in hospital admissions. 302% increase. And this is India with 1 billion people. In hospital admissions from alcohol-related causes, whether it's physical, whether it's medical, or whether it's psychological or psychiatric. And that's just the alcoholic himself. I'm not even talking about the burnt wives and the battered children and the crashed cars and the businesses affected. What is the figure you put? $203 billion lost? You know, here are some figures. 30% of the population of India, which is about 300 million people, have admitted to using alcohol. 58% of that, or 160 million, admit to problematic drinking. And the accepted figure in the addiction world is between 8 and 15% of people, which they narrow down to 7%, is going to develop alcoholism. We have approximately 16 million people in India that have a drinking problem. Now let's take the figures right here where we live. And it's so weird that you brought up those figures in that pie graph because I had the same ones from a different source. 70% of Americans drink. That's 210 million people. Only 7%, and you had that 7% are going to develop alcoholism, which is 16 million. That is crazy. That only such a small percentage of people are going to develop that problem. When Dr. Makhija at the start gave us the figures, there are currently 3.1 million Indians or South Asians or whatever the politically correct acronym is, living here in New Jersey with a 1400% increase. That translates to approximately 300,000 of those South Asians living here have tried. And I'm just going to stick with alcohol. I'm not going to talk about that other substance that's legal in 14 states. 300,000. Maybe they're all the second generation and third generation Desi kids. Maybe they are the adults that came over from overseas. 300,000, 180,000 of them are going to have problematic drinking. And 7%, 13,000 Desis are either alcoholic. And I bet you, from all my esteemed colleagues over here in the room, we are not seeing 13,000 people coming to our rehabs or our outpatients or to our detoxes or to our private practices. Why? Because of the stigma. Halkat, kutte, you have no willpower, you're doing this on purpose, you can stop if you want to, you just don't want to. So what is the solution? The solution has been the same solution that's been around from 1935. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Alcoholics Anonymous and how it can apply to our community. So the story is as old as mankind himself. The oldest recorded written literature is the Vedas. And the first mind-changing, mood-altering substance there was somras, the drink of the gods. The next written recorded literature was the Jewish Torah, where God gave them wine. I can't say it in Hebrew, but it's the gift of God that gladdens the hearts of men. It's used socially. It's used at weddings. It's used to seal business deals. It's used as social lubricant. It's used to relax. It's used to alter moods. It's fun. It's parties. It's all those other things you talked about. But along with this comes problems. All the medical problems, all the social problems, financial problems. What do? India is such, historically and still, a very order-following, stand in line, we'll do what needs to be done, respect of elders in authority. We have a problem. First thing we're going to do, go to our religious leaders, whether it's a pujari or a priest or an imam. Some bhajans are going to be said. Some money is going to change hands. Some chicken and goats might lose their lives. And everybody will go home happy for a little while. And then again, the doc talked about it. The social cues, the anxiety, the irritability, the restlessness. Well, I'm not drinking anymore, but my in-laws are really getting on my nerves. I'm not drinking anymore, but the traffic is... What do? I'm just... Gurmeet talked about, I'll just have one drink and I'll be okay. But once he has that one drink, it's after the race again, nobody knows why. And then along came the doctors with apologies to those present. And they said, come on, we'll give you some medication. Snake oil charmers, we used to call them, snake oil salesmen. Are usko ghoda ka pisab pilao, they used to say in India. I've seen some poor people go to the Bilasis Road Bombay Central Station trying to convince some guy to sell them horse's urine to feed some poor. Yeah, he got sick for a few days. And then what? He went back to doing that again. So religion didn't seem to work. Medicine didn't seem to work. Along came the psychiatrists, Freud and Jung and Adler. I said, come on, lie down on my couch with apologies to all the psychiatrists present and tell me all your problems. And, I don't know if I'll solve your drinking problem, but at least you can blame your mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law, that's a good one.
Mother-in-law, not your mother, because she's going to clean up after you. So the first real change came in 1933. Dr. Carl Jung, who had broken away from Freud and Adler because of his belief in God and a higher power, was treating an American millionaire called Roland Hazard. This guy tried everything to stop drinking, finally went to Jung. Jung treated him for a year. And this guy on the way back to the States on the ship started drinking again. He had enough money. Boss, I stayed with you for 1 year. You took all my money. Why am I drinking again? And the doctor, in complete humility, he said, I've treated many people, but an alcoholic of your description, there's virtually no hope. Says, I'm going to die. He said, nah. Here and there, once in a way, I've seen people recover. They need to have a vital spiritual experience. So this guy said, I'm a good church goer. I go to church, I pray. I said, no. I'm not talking about your religious practices. I'm talking about having a spiritual experience. Changing the way you feel will change the way you think, will change the way you act. So what do you mean? So somebody steps on your foot, you feel pain, you get really angry, and you have a drink to relax while you're plotting revenge on that guy. He's saying you have a spiritual experience, someone steps on your foot, you still get pain, but instead of getting angry, you say, well, maybe the poor guy didn't see me. And you let it go, you forgive. That's the change. So this guy, Roland, came back to the US, checked out all these different mosques and mandirs and churches, and he found a small group in a church in New York called the Oxford Group. In India, they're called the MRA Center, Moral Rearmament. And they had a little program which says, admit your defeat, ask God to help you, take an honest inventory of your life, share that with someone else, and go find some other idiot to join this religion. So this guy liked the first part of the program, was happy with his own religion, went on with his life. Simultaneously, on the Upper West Side, there was a doctor, Dr. Silkworth, graduate of Bellevue in NYU. He was running in 1920s one of the most exclusive, what we call today. He was running the Betty Ford and Hazeldens of the day, and he was treating people. He just used hydrotherapy and a mild sedative, detoxed them, and said, "Listen, don't drink anymore." And after a few days or a few weeks, they'd be back. And said, what the heck happened? And from every single one of the 40,000 patients that he treated, he got these answers. Answer number one, Doc, I left. Life was great. My wife came back. I made a lot of money. So I said, hey, let's celebrate. I'll have one drink. Or it was dark. I left the hospital. Life sucked. My wife never came back. My business failed. I'm still broke. And I felt so upset. I said, let's have a drink. And the doctor said, that isn't, Gurmeet used the term, insanity. I've just detoxed you, man, for the 15th time. You cannot drink alcohol in any form at all. It was Elias who said, I can't even drink NyQuil. I can't. There's something wrong with your mind if you think that you can go out and drink and not come back to this hospital again. He called it a mental illness. And then he asked them the $1 million question, okay, your mind told you to have one drink. What are you doing back in the hospital? Why didn't you stop at one drink? And every one of the 40,000 said, I don't know. Once I sat down, it was like super glue under my butt. And I couldn't get up till the bottles were over. Where there was the little 5 mini bottles, aeroplane bottles, or where there was 5 full size. So it was a mental illness and a physical problem. And religion, medicine, and psychiatry didn't seem to have a solution. Simultaneously, in the 1920s, after World War I, British veterans, the social workers of the day, noticed a curious phenomenon. Every morning after breakfast, soldiers with similar disabilities would go to different areas of the common room. All the blind guys there, all the one-legged guys there, all the burnt guys there. And they were talking and laughing, and the social workers said, what are these guys talking about? Gurmeet said, war stories. These guys were sitting into, hey man, you remember when that bomb went off and you wouldn't let us help you because all your clothes got blown off and you're naked. Ha ha ha, they were all laughing. What was happening? What was happening? They never grew new eyes or new legs. But they started to heal emotionally and mentally. Why? Because you're sitting with another guy and saying, oh, you were in the war? I was in the war. I can identify with you. Oh, you drank Red Label, I drank Blue Label, and you vomited in your wife's father's car. Oh, that happened to me. A sense of identification. And then came the hope. But wow, you survived the war. And you're here, and you're getting better. Wow, you survived your alcoholism. You're sober 18 years. And Pradeep's sober 18 months. And Elias is sober said, oh my God, I'm just coming in. I just got off the boat. I just lost my job. My wife's ready to leave me. I can't stop drinking. Dr. Makija threw me out of 3 hospitals. He said, there's no hope for you. And suddenly these 3 guys from India, Desi guys are sitting there, man, we drank like you. We woke up broke and sick and unemployed and single and got, why are the cops picking on me? Not because you're brown, because you're drunk. Oh, I thought it was a racial thing. It's not. And I get that sense of it. But these guys are sitting here looking happy. Comes the hope. And if they can do it, then I can do it. So what exactly is this it? So into this mixture came a fellow called Bill W. And he was a hopeless alcoholic. One time a millionaire. He had lost everything. And he had to sell his apartment on Park Avenue and move in with his wife's family in Brooklyn. So all the Desi men over here, you know what the deal is, man. When you lose your job and your house and you go and live with your in-laws, woo! You don't hear about it even when you make your money back and leave. And this Bill used to always say, if I ever get bad as my friend Amy Thatcher, then I'll stop drinking. This series of amazing coincidences. Roland Hazard, the millionaire, he went and he talked to this guy, Abby, and he taught him this little formula. Admit you're defeated, ask God for help, get honest about whom you've hurt, clean it up, go find someone to join the religion. Abby said, I'm not finding anyone to join this religion, but I'm going to tell my friend Bill. Bill gets sober. Bill runs around and starts helping other people. He met a doctor in Akron, Ohio. I would pay good money to have heard that conversation. Here's a broke, unemployed, 35-year-old New York City failed stockbroker sitting down and explaining to a medical doctor, Dr. Silkworth told me that it's an illness, an insanity of the mind, and an allergy of the body, an adverse physical reaction. And the only solution is the spiritual mumbo jumbo, admit you're defeated, ask God for help, and this and that. And the doctor bought it. And these two guys started taking this message to other people, and they had to remain anonymous because they couldn't help everyone. And it spread and it became Alcoholics Anonymous. In 1957, a Canadian diplomat was transferred to India. And he asked the AA office, give me a list of AA meetings. They said, there's no AA meetings. At great personal risk to his own reputation and to his country's reputation, he put an ad in every single English language newspaper. Do you have a drinking problem? Do you want to stop? Write in conference to late Charlie Marshall, Canadian High Commission, New Delhi. There was a school teacher in Bombay, the late Harry Matthias, lost everything, the usual story. He wrote to Charlie, goes to Delhi, stays with him for 2 weeks, he gets sober. Now comes one of those amazing things when only a God could have arranged this. So Harry comes back to Bombay and he says, I'm going to 12-step my best friend, Professor Ignatius Pinto. He goes and tells him, Ignatius gets sober. The two of them 12-step John G. John gets sober. The three of them 12-step Tony Mascarenas. Tony gets sober. Tony was my grandmother's brother. 1957. The four of them go and 12-step the late Vittal Pai. Vittal gets sober. What is the common factor? All five of these guys were Brahmin. All of them were from St. Aloysius College. All of them were from Mangalore, India. And from 1957 till 1974, AA in India was a very small elite club. Rich people, English speaking, all the sahibs were over there. All the meetings were only in English. There's only about 25 or 30 meetings in India. And one day one of these guys, cooks, had a drinking problem. Enter Hussein Bhai. Hussein Bhai didn't speak English. The sahibs had to speak to him in Hindi. So they started explaining AA program to him in Hindi. Hussein Bhai started bringing in everyone. And thanks to that act in 1974, almost every meeting in India today is bilingual. There'll be English and something, or Hindi and Marathi, or Kannada and something. It's amazing. The growth has been very slow. AA started in India in 1957. We have only 800 meetings in the entire country. It's not even in all the 26 states. But what is the impact? What is the role of AA? Who took my note? What happened to my note? Can I have it somewhere? Anyway, what is the impact of AA on society? What it's doing is providing an opportunity for people like me to be able to meet other people like me. Get hope, get well, recover. It starts to loosen some of the stigma. It starts to make you think, maybe I can do this. It's not something that I'm condemned to die. I can actually do this. It was a long uphill battle from 1935 to 1957. If you had a drinking problem, AA was the only answer. Finally, in 1957, the American Medical Association accepted alcoholism as a disease. And then treatment centers and rehabs and outpatients started. And today it's great. Almost 70% of the people going to AA meetings are referred by doctors and rehabs and outpatients. And it's a really great thing for us. Is there a therapeutic value of what AA does as to what a therapist does? It does. Cognitive behavioral therapy is where you are trying to get the patient to recognize what the problem is and then take actions to change the behavior. That's what the spiritual program of AA does. You have a problem, let's take some actions which will change your behavior. You go from a drinker to a non-drinker. You learn to have different social cues. So if you're going out and a whole lot of booze and stuff like that, instead of drinking, I'll call one of my AA buddies. That's the relief. I'm going to end in a couple of minutes with a little bit of my own personal history and how I got into this field, as Mansi very kindly introduced me. I wasn't always in the drug and alcohol field. Like I said, I went to college and I found people exactly like me. My parents are both dentists, both wanted me to be a dentist. Drugs and alcohol had different plans. So it took me 3 years to finish 1 year of college, and then St. Xavier's College kicked me out. And so I started working full time. I worked in the airlines for about 10 years. I was one of the youngest cargo managers in India. If any of you have ever lost a bag on TWA, Kuwait Airways, Gulf Air, Ethiopian, Delta, Pan Am, it was probably me. Because when you're drunk at 6 o'clock in the morning and the black's coming down the conveyor belt, you don't know whether it says Vladivostok or Vancouver. You throw it in a container to Addis Ababa and hope it gets somewhere. So the airlines didn't like that. They kicked me out. I was playing pool with my snooker with a friend of mine who was a film producer, a fellow called Saeed Mirza. So Saeed and I were shooting. We were both drunk. He said, "Hey, what are you doing in airlines? Come and work in film production." What do I know about film production? But 3 o'clock in the morning, it sounded like a great idea. So I called my boss, told him where he could shove his job. And I showed up at Saeed's office the next day. Kundan Shah says, "What are you doing here?" So I said, "Saeed hired me last night." And that's how I got into the film business. My story ended December 10th, 1989. We were shooting a TV serial called Circus. There was a young unknown actor called Shahrukh something Khan, yeah. And he was, after he did Fauji, nobody would hire him. Virendra Saini, Saeed and me were in Delhi, all three were well charged. Saeed said, "Hey, kya ho gaya wo chokra? Which chokra?" That Fauji, okay. So I brought him and we said, "Okay, we'll cast you in this thing." I was out drinking whole night. I get a call 6 o'clock. "Hi, may I speak to Roy Tellis?" "Who the hell is this?" "This is Shahrukh Khan." "Who the hell are you?" "You guys hired me to do this." "Oh, okay. You got $50 in your pocket?" This thing, I said, "Oh my God." I said, "Go outside Bombay airport, take a 50 rupee prepaid taxi to Rizvi College. I'll meet you there." Jumped in the shower, got on my bike, zoom. Oh man, what fun. Shahrukh wrote about it in his book. My production manager left me behind. But December 10th, 1989, I'd been drinking from 6 in the morning and doing cocaine and codeine and marijuana. And at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I got on my motorcycle. 7 days later, I woke up in Goa Medical Center. My bike had gone over a cliff. I'd been in a coma, 18 stitches in my head, 8 compressed vertebrae in my back and my neck. You know what? I woke up, where am I? Shame, fear, guilt, remorse. I knew what would make me feel better. I took a discharge against medical advice. All of a sudden, I became Mahatma Gandhi. Arey, garib log ko chodo hospital mein. I'll go to my hotel and recover. Crossed the road, had 2 drinks, rented another motorcycle, and went back to the film unit. Insanity. 3 months later, I was at my first AA meeting sober. Very wonderful young lady called Dr. Juliet Nathwani said to me, "If you would never want to be in a situation like this, go to those people in AA and do whatever they tell you to do. When all other options have failed, what do you have to lose?" April 22nd, 1990, I had my last drink. I've been sober ever since. 3 years later, we were doing a project for UNICEF in India, 1993. We had a malaria epidemic. I almost died. And I was sitting in hospital and said, "What am I doing in my life? I'm 3 years sober, I speak 3 languages, excellent communication skills. I think I need to be doing this the rest of my life." There's no schools for addiction counseling in India. Turned it over. I said, "God, if you want me to do this, you make it happen." And God opened the doors and I'm here. One last thing about the spirituality of the AA program. So like I said, I come from a mixed background. So depending which grandmother I was visiting, I would be assured that the other half was the wrong kind and going to a warm place. 1 minute. All those Catholic cousins are going to hell and all those Hindu cousins are going to hell. I don't have anything to do with God. And I became an atheist. But when I came to AA, these guys said, all you have to do is believe in a power greater than yourself. So what does that mean? Do you have any friends left, Roy? Yeah, why? Well, they bail me out, they get me jobs, they hook me up, they lie for me. Okay, if there was actually a God in this universe, wouldn't you like God to be like that? I said, yes. Use that as a starting point. My own conception. God as I understood God. I did. It's been 26 years, 4 months, 3 weeks since I last had anything to drink or drug. Life is not a bed of roses. I got married in sobriety. Now I'm getting divorced in sobriety. My house is in foreclosure. I got laid off from work 6 weeks ago. I got fired. God in His own wonderful way gave me a whole new career. Now I own my own intervention company. I go to people's houses and I do interventions, send them off to rehabs. It's been wonderful. I get an opportunity to talk all over the world. And it's all because I was humble enough and willing enough to let Datta, the mango seller, who couldn't read and couldn't write, tell me, I don't care how many doctors you're a child of, if you can't stop drinking, we know how to help you. And I listened to that guy. And I've been sober since. I want to thank Dr. Makhija for asking me to speak and Mansi for this.